All right, welcome in everyone to the deep dive. We're going deep today on something, well, really powerful and I think pretty relevant to all of us. We're looking at a piece called A Call for True Righteousness.
Catchy title.
Right. And at the heart of it is this passage from the book of Amos, chapter 5, verses 14 through 27. And it all builds up to this incredible line. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream.
Whoa, that's imagery that really grabs you. I mean, the force of a river, right? How it just keeps going, makes you think about how strong these concepts of justice and righteousness really are.
It does, yeah. It's powerful. And it got me thinking, how often do we maybe feel that disconnect? Like what we say we believe and how we actually live? This piece really dives into that, especially when it comes to, I guess, expressing our values or even, sometimes falling short.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that kind of internal struggle, trying to live up to our ideals, that's something we all face. Doesn't matter your background, really.
Exactly. So today, in this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack what this ancient call for true righteousness really means. For us now, we're going to look at this critique of maybe like outward actions that maybe lack that deeper foundation. And then we'll explore the vision it offers for a life that's really marked by justice and like genuine goodness.
So it's about going beyond just appearances.
Yeah, exactly. Like what's real and lasting,
Right.
what truly matters.
I'm with you.
Awesome. So let's jump right in with that central image, okay? Let justice roll on like a river. What strikes you about that comparison? Justice as a river.
Well, a couple things. First, like I said, that constant movement, it's relentless. A river doesn't just stop, right? It carves its own path, changes the landscape.
Yeah.
So justice, it shouldn't be passive. It needs to be this active force shaping things.
I like that, this force that shapes things.
Yeah. And also, it's life-giving, a river. It sustains things, nourishes.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that way.
Yeah. Like where there's justice, things can flourish.
And the author uses words like powerful, refreshing, unstoppable, right? It really emphasizes that essential, unwavering aspect.
Definitely.
Now, the context here is that, at least according to this piece, the people at the time, they'd kind of gotten off course. They were doing all the rituals, the singing, the offerings, but
they were missing something crucial.
Exactly. What was the writer really critiquing there? What did they see as the big problem?
Well, the piece is pretty direct about it. They were failing to live out the very values their religion was supposed to be about, you know, justice, righteousness, caring for the vulnerable. They were missing the mark on those essential things.
So it's like you can go through the motions, but
if your heart's not in it, if it doesn't change how you act.
Right, then it's all for show.
Exactly, like empty gestures.
And the piece makes this point that God wasn't impressed by the noise of their worship. It wasn't about how loud or how often.
It's a point that resonates across so many traditions, right? True faith, true devotion. It has to show up in how you treat other people. It has to be lived out.
That's so true. It's about the impact, not just the appearance. Okay, so let's dig into the first key lesson that this piece highlights, the necessity of genuine righteousness. It quotes Amos urging people to seek good, not evil, and to hate evil, love good. What's a deep meaning there, would you say?
It's a call to action, right? Not just passively avoiding bad stuff, but actively pursuing what's good. And that combination, hate evil, love good, it's about a passionate engagement with morality. You have to choose a side.
It's interesting because it's phrased so simply, but
it's actually super profound when you think about it.
Right. And the author emphasizes that righteousness and justice, they're not just like add-ons to faith. They're central to it. Why is that distinction so important?
Well, because it changes everything about how we understand faith. If justice and righteousness are optional, then faith can become just about feeling good or appearing virtuous. But if they're at the core, it's about a much deeper integration. Your beliefs have to shape your actions.
It's about walking the walk.
Exactly. It can't just be talk.
So the piece talks about this contrast between like going through the motions versus having an authentic heart. What does it say really matters when it comes to worship?
Sincerity. Alignment.
Yeah.
It can't just be empty ritual. There has to be a genuine desire to live in a way that's consistent with your values.
And so how do we do that? How do we live out this genuine righteousness? The piece gives some practical examples. The first one is to serve joyfully, using our gifts and our time to support people in need. It calls it worship in action.
Right. It's about putting your faith into practice. Your compassion, your care for others, especially the vulnerable, that's how you show what you really believe. And joyfully, right? It's not supposed to be a burden. It should come from a place of genuine love.
Yeah, like it should be fulfilling.
Exactly. When you help someone, there's a joy in that.
Then it talks about choosing what is right, even when it's hard, and that God sees your integrity and honors it. What's the significance of that, even when it's hard part?
Because that's where true integrity shows up. When it's easy to do the right thing, well, anyone can do that. But when it costs you something, when you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's unpopular, that's real courage. And that kind of integrity matters. It doesn't go unnoticed.
It's about making those tough choices. And then the last example is speaking up for justice, specifically defending the voiceless, supporting those who are hurting, being that voice of compassion and courage.
Because silence allows injustice to thrive.
Right.
When we speak out against what's wrong, when we stand up for those who are marginalized, we challenge the systems that perpetuate injustice. That takes courage because sometimes it means going against the grain. But compassion compels us to act, to speak up for those who need it most.
And all of these things, these actions, the piece says they make us part of God's never-failing stream of righteousness. Tying back to that image from the beginning.
It's like our individual actions. When they're aligned with these values, they become part of something much bigger. We contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
Our actions create ripples.
Exactly. It's a collective effort.
So that leads into the second key lesson, God's rejection of false worship. And this is where the language gets pretty intense. It quotes God as saying, I despise your religious festivals. That's a strong statement. Well, what's behind that kind of reaction?
Well, it's about the hypocrisy. They were going through the motions of religious practice, but their lives didn't reflect the values they claimed to uphold. The festivals, the rituals, they were empty because they weren't accompanied by genuine care for others.
It's like you can't just show up and
expect it to count for something if your actions don't match your words.
Right. It's the disconnect that's the problem. And the piece says that God wants worship that overflows into love, mercy, and right living. That word overflows, it's such a vivid image.
It means your faith can't be compartmentalized. It has to impact everything you do. Love, mercy, justice, these have to be the natural expressions of your beliefs.
It's about letting your faith flow into all areas of your life. And then there's this idea that true faith is consistent, not perfect, but sincere. That feels important, that distinction.
Totally. Because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. But it's the ongoing effort, the sincere desire to do what's right that matters.
It's about direction, not perfection.
I like that. Yeah, it's about heading in the right direction.
So, how can we cultivate that kind of authentic worship? The piece offers some practical suggestions. The first one is examine your heart. What does that mean, practically speaking?
Self-reflection. Honest, critical self-reflection.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, are my actions really lining up with my values? Where am I falling short? It takes a willingness to be honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable.
To really look inward.
Yeah.
And then the next suggestion is make your relationship with God personal, to worship in spirit and truth, not just out of habit. What's the difference there?
Worship that's just habit becomes empty. It's going through the motions without any real heart or meaning behind it. But worship in spirit and truth, that's about a deep connection. It's about genuinely wanting to understand and live out your faith.
It's more than just ritual.
Way more. It's about the why behind what you do.
And then finally, there's this idea of encouraging a culture of authenticity, being someone who helps others grow, not just in knowledge, but in love and living it out. How does that contribute to true worship?
Because we're not meant to do this alone. When we create spaces where authenticity is valued, where people can grow in their faith and their actions, we support each other in this journey. It's about building a community that reflects the values we believe in.
So it's about creating that support system.
Yeah, helping each other live out our faith authentically.
And the piece ends this section by saying that true worship comes from our lives, not just our lips, bringing it all back around to that idea that our actions are what really count.
Actions speak louder than words, right? It's a reminder that our whole lives can be a form of worship. The way we treat others, the choices we make, that's what shows what we truly believe.
So as we kind of wrap this up, the final section describes this passage as both a wake-up call and a beautiful invitation. What's at the heart of that invitation amidst all the critique?
I think it's a call to go deeper, to move beyond superficial expressions of faith and really embrace a life that's grounded in justice, compassion, integrity. It's about aligning your actions with your values in a real, tangible way.
And it says it's not just about stopping what's wrong, but starting to do what's right.
Right. It's not enough to just avoid doing bad things.
You have to actively choose good.
Exactly. It's about actively building something better.
And the piece ends by emphasizing that this message is still relevant today. Why do you think that is? Why does this ancient call still resonate with us?
Because that struggle to live up to our ideals, to be the best versions of ourselves, it's a universal human experience. We all face that tension between what we believe and how we act. And this message reminds us of what truly matters. It calls us back to those core values of integrity and compassion that are essential for a good life, both individually and collectively.
Values that never go out of style.
Exactly.
So, to sum up our deep dive today, we've looked at a call for true righteousness and how it uses that powerful image of justice as a river to highlight the importance of aligning our actions with our values. It's a challenge to move beyond superficiality and embrace a life that's truly marked by integrity and compassion.
And for me, the key takeaway is that the true measure of our beliefs isn't in our words, but in how we live. The consistency between what we say and what we do, that's what really matters.
That's a great way to put it. And I want to leave you, our listeners, with a final thought to ponder. Consider the streams that your own life creates. Are they flowing with that kind of justice and righteousness described here? Are they a force for good in the world? And what might it look like to more intentionally cultivate that kind of stream, not just in the big things, but in those everyday choices we make?
It's a powerful question. How can we each contribute to making the world a more just and compassionate place?
What a great question to leave us with. And as always, we want to give you a little something to take with you, some words from the source material to reflect on. Live righteously, let justice flow. Thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.